Mike, is there a way to tell if it's recording?
Is it on?
Oh, yeah, I had to switch it on. There we go. Now it is.
Now it should be good.
Okay, it's 6:30. Let's go ahead and begin the Hillsboro City Commission meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I just want to take and test the mic here to make sure that everybody can hear in the audience out there as well as virtually. So we'll take a look for any inputs that come from that way. I'd like to take and begin the commission meeting tonight with the public hearing for Daigleman Industries. And to start it off, commissioners, I would like to take and have Jim talk from the Trail County EDC about some of the economic impacts that the city of Hillsboro could expect with the approval of this tax incentive. So Jim,
Terry,
you want to take and give us some stats?
Terry, if I could just jump in for a bit. I noticed that Ashley didn't note this in the agenda, but in the publication for the competition notice, I set the hearing for 6:45. So,
Keep it to 6:45.
Pardon me.
We have to start at 6:45.
So we have to wait till 6:45.
Well, if we're doing things other than the competition hearing part, that's just fine. But the actual opportunity for competitors to speak for or against the application has to wait till 6:45.
Okay, so we have to wait for Jim then to 6:45 is what you're saying?
No, I don't think so. I just wanted you to know that because of how I scheduled this, we can't have any competitors. Jim, I don't think is a competitor. Yeah, I don't think so. So I just wanted to make sure that we didn't get going too soon. So sorry for interrupting.
No worries. Let's go ahead and have Jim take and continue and give us some economic impact before we get into the other discussion.
Yep, and it should
be,
light up.
in blue.
Thank you for giving me a minute tonight, Hillsboro City Council. I appreciate very much. So obviously I'm here representing Trail County Economic Development, as is Deputy Director Alyssa Short, and we put together some talking points, basically just some quick bullet points on the project, how we feel about it from our perspective, from Trail County Economic Development's perspective. Full disclosure, obviously, we're pro-business and we represent the client on this, and that's how we feel. So, but this is just one man's opinion, as the Big Lebowski once said. So, first of all, this seems like a big ask, but keep in mind it's not a full 10-year, 100% incentive. This is on the new portion only. Competitively, and this is important, this is a customary ask in larger neighboring communities. These are often these incentives are often offers. Let me reword that. Often these incentives are offered up for 20 years for similar manufacturing projects. This is what we are competing with daily when we're competing for new business, and I kind of feel like new business means expanding business. It's new and at the same time existing. So it's in our incentive it's in our best interest to show that we're a business-friendly environment. Daigleman has put significant investment into its facility and shown itself to be a tremendous steward of the community. This expansion solidifies their future with Hillsboro. These incentives will help Daigleman USA towards the recruitment for the 50 full-time positions that they'll be searching for over the next 2 years. An investment that's needed in today's extremely difficult and tight labor market. Daigleman believes in Hillsboro. They've invested in Hillsboro. There are literally literally hundreds of other cities where this company could have built, and, well, they still could. By helping the community grow here, you are helping solidify their commitment to growing and expanding in Hillsboro and Trail County, which will help the city, the county, and the school district next year. And it'll help in 10 years, and it'll help in 20 years. In the scheme of things, this is a short-term incentive with a long-term investment with a longer-term payoff. The impact of 50 new positions in a community of this size cannot be overstated. These are good jobs, well-paying, great benefits, opportunities for growth within the company, which they've shown. That's potentially 50 new families and their trailing spouses and kids, all of whom could help contribute to the region's workforce, right here in our community. Help to fill Riverwalk that much faster, meaning more property taxes, more students enrolled in the schools, more people patronizing local businesses. It's the long game. Existing incentives nearing their end for original build-out, which means in 2025, Daigleman would be paying $90,000 in property taxes, and that's in perpetuity. That's never going to stop. That's on the existing structure. That has nothing to do with this incentive. It's this short-term incentive on the build-out. In 10 years, this addition will be paying nearly double that what it's currently paying. And that's just the property taxes on the build-out, not the taxes already being generated. Let me see. Should have done this on 2 pages. And the peripheral impacts of new residents in our community and or sales tax revenues. It's a win-win, in my opinion, factoring in workforce and an opportunity to grow the community. I'm just going to be frank with you here on this point. Other communities of our size, of other sizes, are jealous that this community or this business, Daigleman USA, exists here. Right? We all know people that we grew up with and from other communities that say, how are they here? Why do they stay here? It's because they're working and they're doing well. They're doing well for the community, and hopefully the community can do well for them. My last point, let's keep it that way. I will take any questions you have for me that I can answer from my perspective.
Can you repeat what the tax payment is for Daigleman's in 2025 that you quoted? Was that $90K?
Yes.
90.
Yes.
Okay.
There it is. Yes. Yes.
I just wanted to make sure.
These
I
are
had
rough
that.
numbers.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I had that for the future, conversations that I have about this. Okay.
So then for the next 5, following that, with the 50% incentive, it would be 130 roughly. If I take 90 divided by 2, I get about 45 plus 90 is about 135. That's what my old school math tells me. Then it will go down for the next 5 years, but then it'll go back to full.
Commissioners?
Will you be addressing the specifics on this, or will Justin, as far as the tax side and what the ask is?
Well, I'm
What-
sorry, Paul, but
What will you be addressing the ask, or will Justin, as far as,
but the ask was made 2 months ago.
yeah, but I wasn't here 2 months
Oh,
ago.
I'm sorry.
so-
Is it not in your packet?
No, there's nothing in my packet.
Okay.
I can give Paul an application. I have a
Thanks.
copy with.
Sorry.
The ask is essentially 5 years, 50%, and then 5 years, $1 in lieu for the expansion only.
5 years, 50%, right? Okay. Okay.
And Paul, would you like to read portions of that into the microphone so that the audience out in virtual world there can take and hear what the document says?
Before Paul gets going on that, I'm going to jump in again one more time. It's been clarified, at least between Jim and me, that an actual reading of that application looks like it's an 11-year tax incentive request. But we got off on the math a little bit, so it's been clarified between Jim and me that Daigleman's is looking for the 10 years. Just the numbers are typed a little bit wrong there on the payment in lieu of tax part of it. So
The last 5 years.
Yep. So it's not 5 at 50% and then 6. It's 5 and 5.
Thanks, John. I forgot about that, yep.
So you got a property tax exemption, 5 years, 50%, then it's got a payment in lieu of taxes,
Yes.
and that's for 5 years,
Yes.
ending in 2032. And it's for,
But, okay, no, and I do know this, and I'm not 1,000,000% sure on this, but that's not a real number anyway. But that, after the building is complete, that's when the first incentive will start, because it won't be during the build-out, it'll be after completion.
okay.
Right. But they won't be
And if I
paying-
remember right, that's 2024, Justin? The building build-out,
No, it's gonna be done in 2020.
2023? Okay.
We'd essentially be on tax roll or theoretical tax roll in 2023.
Okay. And for the audience out there in virtual world, Justin just answered that the building build-out will happen in 2023 and it'll go in the tax roll in 2023.
Yeah, I don't really know what you really want me to read on this. If there's anybody that's got questions, you guys probably already know what it's all about, but I kind of saw what I wanted to see, so.
Yeah, Paul, basically, I think we just wanted to make sure that it was 10 years. First 5 years, 50%, and then the second 5 years is a pilot for $1.
That's accurate.
And it would start in 2023, end in 2033, basically, for the 10 years. Is that sound right, Paul?
Yes, well,
Okay.
that's, if he says 22, you said, right, 22? You were planning on the project?
We're
No.
hoping to start building
Right,
in
right,
2022.
right,
Whenever we're done,
right, so,
you know,
If all goes according to schedule.
that's just. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, we still have another 3 minutes that we have to wait before we hear, but I just want to mention and put Gary on the spot that Paula did text me today too from the Hillsboro EDC perspective about the support from the HEDC. So Gary, would you like to take these few minutes then to talk from the HED perspective?
I guess I don't have any more than, Jim has to say other than, we have the same philosophy as the EDC as far as supporting expansion of new businesses.
And that's basically what Paula said, that she fully supported from the HED's perspective, the incentives going forward. We still have 2 minutes. Is there any other discussion that before we get into the competitors? Any questions from the commission?
No, I have nothing.
Levi?
Did we hear anything back from the county?
Have not heard anything from the county that I'm aware of.
Ashley did not indicate to me today that she had heard anything either. So, at least according to the Century Code, we can take that as the position that the county agrees on the full requested application amount.
Okay.
We can confirm that, of course, but I think for now that's the assumption we should be working under.
Okay.
So I see Tim's here, so if he wants to speak at all on behalf of the school.
Tim, do you want to take and talk from the school board perspective?
I wish you'd come up with the microphone, because people need to hear. Thanks. Because if we don't have you, we're gonna have people saying why. thanks.
And Ashley just texted and said she had not heard anything from the county.
So from a school's perspective, when we discussed it at our meeting, it was, we had talked about the original, the first 5 years, our comfort level with that seemed fine, and then the drop in tax, the payable, payment in lieu was going to, the timing of that, over the course of the years, taking things back off the tax roll and that kind of stuff makes it a little bit difficult for us. The budget continues to grow and build, and we're gonna have, in that time frame, we're probably gonna end up having to change how we manage our budget, or obviously knowing we would probably be cautious of that, but, the school is a little bit reactive with the monies that we get. We do the best we can with what we have at our disposal, and we will do that in the future as well. So I think we're comfortable with whatever you guys decide. I don't want anybody to confuse that we would prefer to have that taxable valuation for the last 5 years, as we're not pro-business, as we don't appreciate and want Daigleman to continue to grow and strive and thrive in this community. That's definitely not the case at all. So it's more so that the monies for us is, there's not really any other way for us to make money or build a budget other than taxes. And when they move around like that and have large businesses that are able to not, then that's gonna affect us. So again, you guys should make the best decision for us as a community, and us as a school will make do with what we have.
And Tim, I'd like to expand, any of the CARES Act or any of the incentives from COVID that you're getting now, would any of that offset your concerns for the final 5 years?
The timing of that, I think, is gonna be a little bit off. Will be, I think most of the CARES Act and that funding will be used up, by that, 2024, 2025, I think is the limit on that stuff, so.
Okay.
John, just a question for you. Does it have to go in this order, or could we ask that the payment in lieu came first and then the tax? The 5% or 50% tax reduction in the second 5 years? Jim's shaking his head no, so I'm guessing that's the answer.
I think as it's written, I'm sorry, but I think as it's written, the build out, it's 50%. That starts the day it's completed. So that's, I think Levi, I get what you're saying, but I think the order has to kind of be in this order.
And I think
I
that's
would
what
agree
was
with that.
submitted, so we'd have to go. Okay, it's 6:47, so now we can open it up for other comments from competitors. Did I say that correctly, John?
Yes.
Does anyone want to make any comments? Hearing no comments from the audience, I guess I would like to take and have the commissioners have a chance to talk about it, have a discussion, or do you want to go into a motion and a vote?
I think I just want to, being that the actual program is not going to start for a little bit, I think it would be better if we could sit on it at least till our next meeting after the first year to think about it a little bit, take in what the school's point of view and make sure that we are making a just decision for the whole community and not based on just what we hear tonight.
Well, I think, though, that we have to take and have a decision tonight for them to carry on, and we've had this basically, we voted on this basically before we opened it up for the critique and consultation to come back in, so I don't think it would behoove us to take and go into the 1st of January's commission meeting. I think it's here tonight to have a decision so that we can take and allow them to have the planning going into the next year for tax purposes and all the things that they have to consider. Commissioners, you agree?
Yeah, I think we should move on and get it done with.
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a motion to take and accept the 5 years at 50% and 5 years at pilot for $1 to take and approve for the Daigleman expansion project.
I'll make the motion.
Dave makes the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mike seconds.
Okay, just so we're clear on what we're discussing, then, the motion is to proceed with approving the application as written without any negotiation between, Justin's company and the school and the city.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanna make sure everyone's clear on that.
And that was kind of my point, is that so we could, I mean, we're hearing the city or the school's point of view. I think it would be good to sit down with somebody from here and the school and Daigleman's and Jim to try to figure out, to make sure, see if there is some negotiation on it.
Can I talk for a second?
Go ahead, Justin.
Okay. So, first of all, I just wanna say that, is this on? Okay. It's on?
Just
So I
get
just wanna
close
say
to
that
it.
am I on?
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay. While I
No.
talk. Okay, well, I'm just gonna talk. So I
Talk on.
appreciate Tim's position and the school board's position on being able to cash flow this thing, and having a stop in taxes, and how that can be difficult from a budgeting standpoint. My thoughts on this is that we've been going at this for 2 months, and we are way further along in this project than what everybody else might be, and continuing to drag this on is gonna be a problem. And I'm not saying that we need to approve the entire thing tonight. Levi, I actually agree with your concept that we should probably sit down and talk to the school board, and see what they're, because I don't wanna, we don't wanna be a bad corporate citizen, right? We wanna be positive members of the community. But Jim's absolutely right that these incentives are what everybody else is offering, and in some cases far greater than this. So I don't feel that our ask is by any stretch out of the ordinary or even a big stretch. We are gonna invest a lot of money in the next 10 years on recruitment, and it's gonna cost us way more than this exemption is worth. So, but on the same sense, we wanna make sure that all parties are satisfied with this, and I would propose that maybe we get together with the school board, but I wanna understand what these true values of taxes are out. We're all talking about an incentive. I don't even know what the dollar values are. You know what I mean? Like Jim, you're throwing around, this 90,000. What is the school board potentially missing out on this? So that I can have a better understanding and the school board can I'm assuming that the school board probably doesn't know what that value even is in the next 5 years, on what your portion of it is.
I could probably figure it out, but.
Right, and so, why don't we figure this out and have a meeting, but I can't wait another 30 days on this. Like, we need to move forward. I've got contractors that are waiting to sign bids. We're further along than the city is at this point. So, I would really request that we figure out a way to, make all parties happy, but understanding what other communities are offering.
But Justin, let me ask Tim. Tim, do you feel that you've had a chance from a school board perspective to weigh in tonight on your concerns, that nothing's going to change if we sit down and talk with you and the school board? I think Paula was sick the night that you voted on this particular project. Yep, and so that might have changed a little bit of the discussion for the school board too, or?
Essentially, we may have had a better handle on some of the numbers that Justin's asking about. I've done some research in the meantime, but, you know, maybe we're not even talking about a budget changing number. But if we're talking about tax evaluations of, or, you know, tax liabilities of $90,000 to $180,000 over the course, you know, of this, I would guess that has some, you know, there's some sort of magnitude that would be, our budget's pretty strong, but it's not without any holes.
And I think if we sit back and take a look at it from a city perspective, that, you know, right now there's not a tax, you know, because there isn't an expansion, so you're really not, you know, losing out on money, but you have a lot of money to gain in the future going forward. And if the numbers are, you know, anecdotally correct that Jim put out there, ballpark anecdotally, that we're still gonna be doing pretty well. I think, and Justin, I think you've already ordered some equipment and stuff, haven't you, for
So,
the project?
The machinery's, the bullets left the chamber on the machinery, but I have not signed a contract with any contractor for building, so.
And I think that's important for, you know, the city to support Daigleman's in this expansion, you know, as soon as possible. And I can understand Levi's concern about having another discussion, but I feel that Tim's been able to weigh in, and the commissioners have had a chance to hear, you know, the potential concern that there is with the school board. But I think it's important for us to press forward tonight and get this taken care of with the motion that John had highlighted. So, but I'll open it up for the other commissioners to take and weigh in also.
Well, I also want to say that, you know, it wasn't, I'm not opposed to it at all, Justin. If I wouldn't have heard from Tim tonight saying that there was some concern, I would have said, yes, let's go for it. And our next meeting is the 3rd of January. That's why I was questioning with the holiday season if we could have that little bit of time till the 3rd to sit down so Tim and the school board can get some numbers and figure that out before the next meeting. Because I personally don't think we're going to have too much of an issue and it'll go through, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody's on the same page and there's no hard feelings or anything coming back.
Justin, Tim wants to take and make a comment. Tim?
With the reactionary nature of our budget, like I said earlier, with 5 years to plan, you know, we probably are gonna be able to make this work. It's not gonna be the end of the world. We'll make it work. I do want, and maybe this is, like Jim said, is the nature of the way that they have to be drawn up. It stinks for the tax liability to come off the books and then come back on for us as building a budget. But we'll make do. I appreciate the help, but as a school, we'll make it work in that matter.
Okay, thank you, Tim. We want to continue?
I want to continue, yes.
My motion still stands.
Okay, and we have a motion, we have a second from Mike, and John read, and he's copying it down, and I'm gonna take and copy yours, John, after this is all done, since Ashley's not here. So we'll go ahead and vote. Levi?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
And a yes for me. Okay, moving on, and congratulations.
Tim.
We're really happy
Thanks,
that,
Jim.
you know, that Daigleman's expansion. And Tim, thank you for coming and making the comments tonight. Moving on, do I have a motion to take and accept the reading of the previous minutes from the
I'll
last
move to
commission meeting?
approve. I'll move to approve.
Levi moves. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Paul seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. And then presentation of the bills. Have all the commissioners had a chance to take a look at the bills and sign the forms? If so, could I have a motion to accept the presentation of the bills?
So moved.
Paul moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
And Mike seconds. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, same. Presentation of bills carries. Monthly disconnects. Any questions about the monthly disconnects?
I'll move to approve the monthly disconnect.
Levi makes a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And Dave seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. Motion carries. City Commissioners reports. Paul?
On the cemetery, of course, I have nothing. Personnel, we have a lot of items that are on the agenda here to deal with personnel going down here. On the electric side, I did start visiting with Jim a little bit to kind of get up to speed on the electrical portfolio and what has to be done. I haven't accomplished a lot yet, but we've started that process and visiting about that. HEDC, of course, we haven't met yet since the last meeting, and I think they don't have a meeting coming up here, if I understand right. So, one thing I would like to do on the HEDC side is I'd like for us to kind of figure out what's the best way that what kind of relationship do we want to have as far as a city? You know, is there something that we want to, to make things work in a different way, to communicate back and forth a little bit better on different ideas, share those ideas, whatever it is. I know that we had a strategic plan that was put out a number of years ago that, you know, maybe we need to look at that again, you know, things like that, just kind of update it. And that's, I kind of want the city council, the members here to, what kind of, how do they vision that relationship, you know? And same way, I'm gonna ask the same question of HEDC. How do we vision the best working together? Because we all have the same goal in common. What we want to do, we want to bring more people to Hillsboro, so on and so forth. So I kind of want to get a picture of what we can do to do that moving forward. So just something that I want you guys to kind of keep thinking about. And if you have any comments, you know, then I'll probably be talking to you more, Terry, because you're already on there. But I think that's important that we bring that subject up to kind of, so we know what direction we want to go.
And I think, Gary, if I remember right, the HEDC is gonna have new officer vote, coming up in January now that we canceled the December. So it might be a really great time to do that, Paul, with, you know, might be some new folks, sitting in different positions.
Exactly. And I'd like to even include Jim, you know, on in that too, you know, a little bit, get his perspective. And, but we kind of want to get, okay, what's the city's vision and what's HEDC's division? You know, can we blend them together to work together as a team to make it work? And that's what I'm hoping for. So
Sounds good.
I think we can do it. We got
Thanks,
a good
Paul.
bunch. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, Mike?
Nothing tonight.
Dave?
Nothing.
Yeah, nothing new at the airport. They're, you know, kind of carrying on business as usual out there, and the hangars are going well. Levi?
Nothing on the rec district or pool side at all. We have some action items that the beautification commission is setting forward, but the other thing that we have tonight is I have Rowan Joe, junk haul and removal come up to kind of talk to us, and so I have John here tonight that's going to talk about their services that we can use to help with some of the beautification in the city that we need to work with. So I'll let Joe or John take over.
So as Levi said, my name is John Minton. My wife Carol is with me as well. We're the owners of Rowan Joe Junk Haul and Removal. And so our service is what we do. We started in 2017. I'm a veteran. I've been in the military, in and around the military for over 30 years. I'm still currently as a reservist right now. I've been on 3 deployments and 1 mobilization, so I've done my fair share, so to speak. I'm trying to retire right now. But so our service is what we do is this. Our biggest thing is this. Here a few years back, my wife took the initiative to be able to reach out to Cass County and Clay County, and we're part of the Hoarders Coalition there in Fargo. Most people don't even know there is one. Levi reached out to me. He sent me some pictures of a current situation here in Hillsboro, and that is pretty much right down the road what we do. We're a very small family business, family-run, veteran-owned business. So we actually will come in, we'll clean everything out, we'll take things off. We try to keep as much stuff out of the landfill as possible. We do not try to put everything into the landfill. So if we can repurpose it, we will. If we can donate it, we will. And the other stuff, you know, we just try to do with what we can in order to keep it out of the landfill. We've actually done anywhere from big hoarding situations down to simple somebody calling us saying, hey, can you remove a couch? Here last March, we actually got called by a client to actually be part of the conversion project, so we had to go clean out a large farm. So we did that as well. So we are a very small company, but we can always, I find ways to be able to get the manpower I need to be able to do what we got to do in that aspect of it. So that's who we are. We're out of Fargo. We've been up here for 7 years. We started this business in 2017 because we knew there was a need. The other thing too is this, the reason why I started this business, as I mentioned, I am a veteran. And one of the biggest things that I have seen coming back off the battlefield is that it's very difficult to find that gray area. Everything's in black and white. And so my goal eventually with this business is to carry it forward to the point where I can hire other veterans and try to help them to understand that it's okay to have gray area. And so I've got a dual purpose here to be able to help those to come back and be able to fit in with the community, and also too, there is a need. This is a hidden thing people don't see often as far as the hoarders. They don't see this. Smaller communities like Hillsboro, you see it, but you know, I grew up in a very small rural town in Arkansas. And sometimes you get complacent and you realize, well, that's just how they are. But it's really not something that should be how they are. It's something that you got to take a look at, which I was listening to some of the stuff y'all talking about tonight. You want Hillsboro to be attractive to other people to come in. And so you want to be able to have a community to where people don't look at like, okay, what's going on here? What's going on there? And you have a community for people to be proud of, to be able to come in and move in and say, hey, this is a community I want to raise my family in. This is a community I want to live at. This is a community I want to retire in. So whatever we can do to be able to help y'all, we'll be more than happy to jump in and get it done. So.
Well, first of all, thank you for your service. Appreciate that. And I think that, Levi, are you aiming at how the beautification committee can take and utilize the company as a resource for us?
Correct. It wouldn't necessarily be for the beautification commission because the final actions come to us here. But we have some properties that are on the agenda tonight that we could use these services for to get where we need to be. And we'll talk about them more. But the reason I brought them up is there isn't a company like this out there that's bonded, insured, certified, and willing to work with us. And I know that was part of the issue in years past. We couldn't find anybody to do this. So I was trying to be preemptive in making sure that we had somebody right away and that was willing to do this type of work for us. And John is more than willing, and he's looked at some of the issues that we have. And I think as we work through some of these properties in town and some of the different things that we need to work with, we'll have a good partnership to make Hillsboro look a little bit better.
Mike
like to
and the
say
other
something real
commissioners,
quick.
I'd like to open it up. Any comments or questions that you have for John?
Yeah,
Sure.
something
He
I
had
was
one
gonna
more
add.
thing.
I just want to add something real quick. Levi hit on something. One of the things that we have made sure that we were able to do is we are actually licensed to be able to haul off like hazardous waste. And when I say hazardous waste, it's household waste. You might not think about it, but when you're dealing with like cleaning agents, anything like that, that's deemed hazardous, household hazardous. There's some companies, and I won't mention their names, but there's some companies in Fargo that are franchises that won't do that at all. We also are licensed to be able to haul off oil. A lot of times you run into these situations like this, especially when you have somebody that has got a lot of stuff accumulated. I can tell you 9 times out of 10 you're going to find barrels of old used oil or something because somebody's changed oil in a car, they've done something. We take care of that as well. We also will haul off the tires as well. That's something that some of the other companies won't do. And as Levi mentioned, we do have insurance to cover liability and bonded and everything, so we're good on that.
So John, you say you haul it off. Where do you haul it to, Fargo?
So I could haul it off to Fargo. Now, I will not put anything in the landfill that's hazardous, any oil or anything like that, but I have places I can dispose of the oil there in Fargo. And so I have resources for that.
Okay. Commissioners?
I get first I want to thank Levi for taking the initiative to find this gentleman. He seems like exactly what we've been looking for. So thanks, Levi, for taking your time. And then, of course, and maybe Levi's talked to you about this. How is your fee structure? How does that work?
So how's our fee structure works is this. So it varies, but in this situation like this, what we have is we have a 6x6 by 12 enclosed trailer. If we're just doing like a small job or something like that, it goes by capacity filled. So it goes in quarter increments, like it's 250 all the way up to 550. However, in situations like this where we're actually jumping in and doing the labor and everything else, and like Levi and I talked, what will help y'all in the long run is that if you can help us actually supply like dumpsters or something like that, then that won't be another cost, for us to have to put on the bill. So basically what you'd be paying for is our labor. Our labor to be able to get this stuff cleaned off and hauled off. If we do have to haul some things off, with the dump trailer, that's fine too. But we're looking at $50 an hour per man hour is what we do. We tried to bid it as close as possible, figuring out how many hours it's going to take us. One of the things I cannot stress this enough, is that when we do the initial bid, sometimes people get the sticker shock. I have never, ever not worked with a customer because I want to try, that's just my best guess on what we can do. We have to take weather in consideration and everything else. But the actual hours that we work is what you're paying for. It's not going to be, well, they took a 2-hour lunch break, let's charge you for that too. No, we won't do that. So we're looking at $50 an hour per man hour for that. And so once again, let's say that we bid a job and it's going to say 80 hours, but we wind up getting in there, get it done, and it only winds up being 40. Well, there you go. That's what you're going to get charged for. We're not going to try to drag it out to make that bid. That's what I'm trying to say. We don't do that.
And you guys have to remember that, you know, yes, we have to pay for it up front, but eventually that gets put onto that property owners, and we will be reimbursed for that. But the other thing we talked about was some of it was, you know, we could work with waste management to use some of the dumpsters that we have here, or bring dumpsters down for like the metal and those type of things to get rid of. And some of the stuff can go out to our landfill if it would need to. And we also talked about, you know, I know we didn't want to get the city crew necessarily involved, but if we asked them to come over with the payloader or tractor to help move some of the stuff, that would be kind of the limited basis, so that they don't have to rent some of those things that they would need. But again, all of that we can keep track of to make sure it goes on.
And really don't get caught up with that, seriously, because I've been doing this long enough there in Fargo that I've got some people I go to for, even if I have to rent stuff, that they always do me a really good deal because I'm such a steady customer. Bottom line is this: I'll work with y'all because I'm not here. Yes, I need to make a profit. I need to feed my family. I understand that. But I'm not here to gouge you, because I'm here to make sure that y'all can accomplish what you're trying to set out to do. And that's making this a place to where people want to come to visit, or people want to come to stay and live. So there you go.
And I don't think we have to make a decision on it right now. It was more so that we have them if we do anything further down the line. So.
And John, from a legal perspective for the city, is it some sort of a contract that we would have to negotiate for a longer term, or is it, you know, month by month, or how would you recommend that, you know, after we've had the decision how we're going to proceed, that we should proceed?
Probably job by job, within the parameters discussed tonight, of course, but I think job by job would be a good way to approach it.
And do you have a standard form then for job?
What I do is
Proposal?
I mean, I've got a couple of standard forms, so I can do actually a bid sheet. So what I'll do is I'll do a bid sheet. And now this is, I've had to do this in times past, and it's not necessarily would be in this case. But some of my clients always say, you know, I need 50% up front of whatever the bid is. But in a situation like this with a city, that's not something I push. It's something that usually is for other clients. That's standard on there. But if that's something that y'all do not feel as though that's something you could do, that's fine. I fully understand. I mean, I know where the city of Hillsboro is. I don't think you're going to go away. So I know that my money will be there when I need it, and I understand that. So I do have a standard worksheet that I do up, a standard bid sheet. And by all means, if you want John to take a look at it, that's fine, because I want to make sure that we're all above board on it and everything's good and everybody's covered. That's the biggest thing for me.
Commissioners, any other questions?
So there's still certain steps that we have to take before we can send these individuals in to the property.
Right.
Because they can't just, we can't just send them on their property.
No,
start-
and that is not the case.
I
but-
just,
No.
you know,
This is more FYI for our
This is a
information that this is
FYI.
available.
Yep.
That, you know, because that was one of the questions that was asked, well, who's going to do this?
Yep.
Like you said, so now you've kind of checked that box. And
Right.
now once we get to that point, I've been trying to figure out what the best way of putting this is. I would think that you've maybe ran across, I don't know, uncooperative.
Yep.
Is that an issue? Have you seen it to be an issue?
No, that's
Okay.
not an issue at all, because you hit on something, Dave. That's exactly it. We ran into a situation here about a year or so ago where it was a sister that got involved with her sister's family that was a hoarder. The husband actually let us go into the house and take a look, but I could not physically go in there and start the job until I got the homeowner's permission, because the sister had no dog in the fight, so to speak, other than just trying to look out for the children that were involved. And it was a situation where there was no heat in the house. And so we reached out to the Hoarders Coalition, and then the fire chief got involved, because in that situation, now that required, now you're looking at endangerment of children. As far as the pushback, I'm not concerned with that, because I'm not going to get in confrontation with anybody. It's going to have to be, all the T's are going to have to be crossed and all the I's are going to be dotted before I will step foot and start taking things away. I mean, I do I do make sure of that before we even do anything. If it's a situation to where it has already been established this is gonna take place regardless, and that goes into y'all's realm as far as what the city ordinances are or anything like that, and they have to comply, and if they don't comply, then you follow through with whatever you have to do, whether it's you got 30 days notice, whatever. That's not my forte. That's not my area. If y'all tell me that it's all done, everything's good, and you give me something right and say it's good, that's fine. I get over there and somebody shows up, that's not a problem. I'll just give somebody a call. All I need is a point of contact, and if it's the sheriff, that's fine. I don't care. I'm not worried about that.
And that was one thing, I did have a conversation with Steve about it too before we worked into this about, you know, if we were going to do this, where we were going to start taking out, because we're forcing the issue, we would line it up with the sheriff's department so that we have somebody there when we're going to do it.
Okay.
And just for those that are listening out there, this is all part of our process that we're looking at, correct? We have a lot of legal hoops that we have to address, you know, going up to this, but just so that people are aware that it's gonna be this is just a part of our process and what we're gonna be doing.
Correct.
That's correct.
And John, Carol, I appreciate you coming up and addressing the commission tonight, and I will take and turn it over for Levi to take and monitor, and we'll take into the consideration and have further discussions and follow up. I'll have Levi and Mike with the beautification committee basically do the follow-up then.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for
Thank you.
allowing us to at least come to speak with y'all. We do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then the only two other things that I had was Ashley didn't put it in the packet, but we did hear today from Mike Blevins that in the last, or two more inspections that we had approved, the one down next to, or the old VFW, there was no major issues with that property. It's a couple minor things, but it's not any issues. And then the one over on First Avenue Northwest, that property will be looking at condemning or taking further action as to clean it up or to fix up or tear it out.
And we got the paperwork. You got the paperwork then from Mike?
Yep, Mike just sent them today, so
Okay.
so see that in the future. So,
Any other questions about those two properties from the commissioners?
and the other property we have not been able to reach to get into it yet. So that is all I have for my portfolios.
Okay, thank you. We Ashley said that Jim's hip surgery was good, went well today, so he's going to be out for a while. So just if you get a chance, you know, wish him well when you see him, or if you text him, let him know that. So John, from the city attorney's perspective.
I can't be quite as quick as Jim, but that's because I'm here. So two quick things. I've heard nothing from Allison and Brian regarding the non-resident utility contracts I sent to them. I mentioned that as it was brought up at last meeting what the status was, and so I've heard nothing. And then secondly, I have not gotten a revised copy of the tax incentive application from 1881 and have not gotten a copy of the lease that will qualify them for the application being granted. I don't know if Ashley has or not
She
heard
didn't mention
anything.
anything to me today.
Yeah, she didn't mention to me either, but I don't think she was probably feeling well enough to mention anything more than what she had to talk about. So that's my report.
Thank you, John. Steve? Nothing from the sheriff's department. Thanks for everything you're doing to help out in this winter conditions here. And Steve, city engineer.
I'll take the other Steve's minutes that you didn't use. Got a couple things. Try to be brief. It looks like a long agenda. The water sewer project, we got a new estimate on that. And originally we had a grant and a loan for $1,050,000 is what we were estimating originally, and now it's up to $1,350,000, so it went up $300,000. We talked to the USDA, there's no additional grant money available, but, they will finance the additional amount. So if you'd like to go forward with the project still with that, additional $300,000, what we would do is, just go ahead with the bid as we're doing and then, figure out where the bids come in. We don't wanna go and ask for another $300,000 and then it comes in at $350,000 and then we have to go back and ask again, so they recommended just bid it, wait and see what the numbers are and then, figure the financing out from there.
I suppose we need a motion to take and approve that.
I'll go ahead and move to go ahead and let bids out for the water and sewer project.
Levi makes a motion to
I'll
take
second it.
and Dave seconds. Any other discussion?
Just, can you clarify that on what exactly that all is?
The new water line under the
Under the
interstate,
interstate, okay.
and then sewer line from town out to the lagoons.
Including the new line under the river too.
Okay.
So it'll be all new out to the lagoon, basically, so.
Yeah, we'll replace the line from the lift station next to the railroad tracks, go underneath the river, and then go all the way out to the lagoon with the new line. The old line was, asbestos line with, like copper fittings or something, and there's been some repairs and stuff on it. That's still the best financing available is what we have in place for it right now,
And that was 49% grant, if I remember correctly?
45.
45, okay.
So what we'll do is, once all the paperwork USDA gets all the paperwork in place, then we'll set a bid date
Okay.
and advertise.
So Levi made the motion and Dave seconded. Mike?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
And a yes for me, so we're good to go.
Okay, that sounds good. The next one was the paving project that we've been looking at some numbers and some different areas to pave and stuff. Right now, the federal government has came down with, it's called the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, and there's gonna be some money that's gonna be coming down for paving. We don't know exactly what's gonna happen yet. It was just approved, I think, last week, and over the next 3 to 4 months, it's gonna kinda trickle down and see what the rules are and where the money's gonna go. So I think we should just kinda hold on the paving project until we can find out where this grant money is gonna go and if we get some for the paving. If the money comes, it's going to be a 2023 is when the money would get let. So,
But what would that do for our bid for next summer for the streets? If we wait a couple months, will inflation and cost go up if we don't bid it? You know, and if we get grant money, that doesn't come till 2023. So, you know, again, we were talking about this project next summer. What's the best estimate on that?
it's hard to tell what the oil prices are gonna be, if they're gonna go up or down. That's one of the bigger factors on the paving. But I'd hate to jump into a paving project until we kinda know what's, available for grant money, if you're gonna get some money out of that.
Are we still gonna work on getting preliminary stuff down, like what, we talked about before, whether or not we were gonna do the sidewalks and how we could get off of that so we didn't have so many, and come up with, what our best guesses are for what part of town we're gonna do and how we're gonna do it.
We could still move forward, keep having our meetings and move forward and come up with a plan so that, come April, or, as, I'm guessing we're not gonna have to wait till April and it'll just give us a final decision, but right now it's too new, nobody knows how the money's coming or where it's gonna go through. But we can keep moving forward and come up with a plan.
It's Dave's portfolio. like
I'd
have
love to
Dave weigh
see
in.
paving project this summer, but I don't know. I think I would agree with you. If we can wait and get grant money and just figure this whole thing out, and not rush it.
Well, and I'm
Just-
not, Oh, go ahead, Dave.
And just, you know, like you're saying, take the time and figure it out and, you know, but I don't see us doing anything this summer. I really don't. I think it's just rushing it. I
But
think,
would there be a way to split some of it out and start this summer and then have grant money come in 2023 to cover the second part of the project? You know, we looked at it as one holistic big project with 5 different options. Can we take a couple of those options and actually do something this next summer? We're gonna have to do specials anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say. We don't know what department it's gonna come through, and some departments will say, you know, you can't start the project until you get the funding in place. So if we started on something, they may not post-fund part of it.
The actual planning and figuring out items and what we're gonna move forward, that's not necessarily the project, it's preliminary
Yep.
production of what we're gonna do and how we're gonna do
I mean,
it.
we can keep moving forward and kind of come up with a plan for the paving project and then just see how the money comes down.
And is any of that money that the state, the 697 million that they put back out, some of that went for infrastructure? Are we, as a town, eligible for any of that money?
No,
None of that's gonna come here.
that's gonna go, I think that's going through the SRF, which, we have applications in for stuff, but that's all water-related things.
Okay, well,
What about manholes? We were talking about manhole replacement.
yeah, I'm just worried that if we don't start to do something next summer, the streets are really gonna, I mean, just
That has
this winter,
something
it's
to do
having a hell of a impact on it, so.
That has something to do with water, doesn't it?
Well, and I think when we get further, once we get these done, we really have to look at our process of fixing streets and fixing potholes more effectively than what we're currently doing to make sure that we keep up on it.
Well, I didn't know this, and I don't know if Dave knew it, but Steve, when he was talking to us earlier, actually doing some of the crack repair in the wintertime is more effective and efficient than it is if you wait in the summertime, because the cracks, how does it work? The tar, or the hot tar goes down better in the
cracks
cracks?
widen.
Yeah, the cracks are wider because the pavement shrunk from the cold weather, but
And so it actually fills them up better. I didn't know that, so. And we've
Makes
never
sense.
done anything in the wintertime.
Well, we haven't really done any patching of holes. We've always done just that crack sealing.
And that crack sealing that they do in the summertime, I mean, it,
Looks good.
I suppose it does a little bit, but it's basically just covering up, you know, it's not
Cosmetic.
really penetrating the
It's the
street.
big holes that we need
Right.
to worry
well,
about.
how about if we keep moving forward, you know, come up with a plan and see what budget numbers we have and what areas we want to pave, and then, you know, relook at it next month and see where this grant money is sitting.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, let's get together in
Well, and I think-
January and
Okay.
Because
talk
I think,
about it.
Steve, we're gonna need numbers, and we're probably gonna have to have a public forum or a citywide meeting, and then
But we're gonna
especially,
have to have a couple of them, because we've seen the numbers.
well, I'm just saying, we're gonna have to do that, plus we're gonna have to have I assume, John, that we have to have meetings if we're gonna do specials as to how we're gonna assess the project to the specials, so there's gonna be some other,
Be an improvement district created and then
Yeah.
follow all the hoops that, I believe it's 4022 of the Century Code, in regards to special assessments, so yes, you're 100% right.
That's why I feel it's just kind of a stretch, you know, for this summer, but, you know, if we can do some of it, that's great, but
Well, if it just came out last week, you know, it's too green to know where it's
Right.
going and what's gonna happen with it, so.
And I assume
But-
that's gonna flow through the state down to the different communities?
Yep, I heard that, the federal DOT isn't getting involved in it, it's kinda bypassing them, so it might bypass the state DOT.
Yeah, because if we can get some money, but, you know, it's not guaranteed. I can't remember, it's only about 25% of what the actual, act has provided. A lot of it's for broadband and different things like that too, so. Okay, let's continue the planning,
Yep.
and then, January we'll figure, but
We'll
if
set
we're gonna
up-
do something this summer, I'm worried about being able to get a bid out fairly soon so that we don't have to pay exorbitant prices if we try to do something this summer.
I think we really need to get a plan. We don't have no clue what we're even looking at doing. And then until we get a plan, we don't even, we want to be fiscally responsible, obviously. But if we don't even know what we're planning for, what do we, we don't have any numbers, at least I don't, they do, but the public's gonna wanna know that. And then we gotta make a decision where we're gonna go.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Yeah, we're just beating around some ideas and stuff, trying to come up with the best plan and then present that, and we'll adjust it once the community gets involved.
We
Rest
still
of the
gotta
commission.
talk to the county also.
Yep, to Tom. I was gonna try to reach Glenda today, but I just didn't get to it, so.
Yeah. Maybe we can get that, maybe we can get together with the county before our January meeting and see, so that's done with. On
Yep.
Caledonia.
Anything else, Steve?
And I had two task orders in front of you for projects that we did earlier. One was the Loyal Avenue flooding study and design, and then the other was the 4th Street Northwest.
I'll move to approve the 2 task orders from AE2S.
Levi makes a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Dave seconds. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion. Dave?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Paul?
yes,
Levi?
Yes.
And a yes for me.
Thanks.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay, moving on to the administrative assistance recommendation. Paul, I understand that you've been, gainfully employed as a commissioner with some of the interviews and things, so I do have the background here from Ashley's notes that Sarah Myers of Hillsboro and Steve's background check came back good. And I'll let you take and kind of cover from there, Paul, your recommendation with the personnel portfolio.
it's pretty much what is written there. She's available to start anytime. The request is if she could start tomorrow. We were presenting a wage of $15.50 per hour. That's kind of the way it is in the policy handbook. After 6 months probation, they would be eligible for the 75-cent increase as long as the review comes back good. And that would put her at 16.25 hours for her July 22 paycheck. At this point, she doesn't feel she's going to need insurance, but that could change going down the road. But after our interviews, it was pretty much unanimous. It was unanimous between the three of us that were interviewing that we recommend Sarah to be hired as the administrative assistant with those numbers that I just mentioned. And I'll entertain any questions that anybody might have.
And Paul, Ashley did request that if possible, we start her tomorrow since Julie's husband is in the hospital and Ashley's out, that she could come in and take care of the phones the way it sounds. Is that, would you recommend that?
Yep. Yes, I do.
Okay. So do I have a motion then to take and accept Sarah Myers for the administrative assistance position?
Also move that she starts tomorrow and be hired at the $15.50 and then 75.
Levi makes that motion for
Second.
starting tomorrow,
I'll second.
$15.50, and Mike seconds. Any other discussion? Levi?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
And a yes for me. Moving on to the Armory Cleaning. Sonia Trinidad from Halsted, and again, I think you're in on this one too, Paul?
I wasn't in on this one as much. I do know Sonia personally from the shop and things that she's done, so I know she's very professional and she does a good job. That's about all I can tell you. I don't know for sure what all Ashley had talked to her about, but the gist of it is that she was asking for $30 an hour, and I think she was going to come in initially just 1 day a week. Like I said, I just don't know a lot about the specifics on what they decided. I'm assuming it would be similar to what the previous one did, and I was under impression, and Bambi can correct me if I'm wrong, that they were going to kind of take care of what they're taking care of now initially. Is that correct? She
And I
said, yeah.
think Ashley's coordinated with you then too, Bambi, about Tanya?
So
Or
one of the
Sonia?
biggest issues when we discussed this, a couple different things is one, Levi had brought up before, well, the city doesn't pay for any other buildings, we're the ones using it. Well, the city's been having different things come in and they're not cleaning. We're having to clean up after the vaccination clinics, after the rummage sale that was there, like, we're still having to clean up after everybody else.
And we got the walkers and stuff now too, so.
Well, that's only been a couple, they don't really make a mess, but that was the biggest issue, is I'm paying somebody to clean up after something that had nothing to do with us.
But
Okay.
then on the same token, we've been paying for somebody to clean up for things that you guys have been making a mess about. So
Well-
I'm just saying that it works both ways is all I'm.
Well, right, but that's also been part of our lease, so that was part of what we're paying for. So the other thing that was brought up from my director then, is if we're taking over the majority of the cleaning, is there any leeway in a rent deduction, since now we're taking that all over? And we were paying before to have that cleaning service.
Well, I think now with this cleaning service, a deep cleaning once a week, that should cover what Tom was doing basically before.
I guess I don't really know what that cleaning entails.
Yeah, she can do everything from stripping the floors to waxing, but, again, when we do the Armory, floor, the gym floor, basically the school has been responsible for that since they use it for springtime practice and different things like that. So I think that this is just, working the details, Bambi, between, you know, your Mayville State and, the city on this, and I think that this is a good, you know, this is the only one basically that we've been able to find. I know that we did pop up the money for her per hour, basically since she has to drive from Halsted, I think was the driving factor on that.
She's
for the
not
other
charging
commissioner.
us mileage either, is she?
Well, no, it's
No.
just, but a little bit more hourly wage, I
Right,
think,
right,
to
to
compensate for
compensate,
that,
yeah.
yeah.
But I can't remember, did Ashley, there was an email from her talking about, did she want to get paid as an employee or we were doing a 1099?
Yeah, how was that? I read that, but I can't remember. She didn't
Ashley
wanna
just
do
said hallways, bathroom and gym.
She didn't wanna do a 1099, I remember that.
Yeah, I think it was just a contract, wasn't it?
Hold on, let's see if she. Because I'm not necessarily in favor of doing her as an employee. Because then we have to start, it's not $30 an hour for us anymore. It's gonna turn into $40 an hour or more. And she wanted to be an employee.
So while we're waiting for that.
Ashley just said that she wants to be, Sonia wanted to be as an employee, not a 1099 contractor.
What do you commissioners think?
So then we have to take taxes out.
Yep.
Right.
And we have to pay,
We
you know,
have to
all
pay
the FICA
taxes.
and everything too. So would it be possible for us to ask Ashley to go back and just to ask her to be on contract? This is just a part-time job, right?
I'm fine with the $30 an hour, but that's the max that we should have to pay you. It
And-
shouldn't be $30 an hour plus we have to pay above and beyond that for taxes. If she
Right.
wants to be an employee, then it's gotta figure out.
But how many hours per week is this? It doesn't say, I don't know. Did Ashley say anything?
Usually it was, if I remember right, between 3 and 4 per week.
Yeah, and it might be more right away.
And it depends on
Yeah.
how many events we have at there, 'cause you know, we may ask her to come in if there's a cleaning or something like that.
There's no way she'll put in 4 hours a week.
Unless she's stripping the floors and waxing them once in a while.
Well, occasionally, but
Yeah.
that would have to be done on a main time when we're closed, but Tom didn't even spend that much time there unless he was doing like the gym floors. So, an hour, if she's coming once a week, I would say an hour, 2 at the absolute max if she's really, really cleaning. But when we're already cleaning every day, it would be more event cleaning than cleaning up after us.
Do we want to take and put an hour limit at $30 $8 an hour as an employee, or if it's not very many hours, raise it up to whatever it would be per hour to make her an employee? What do the other commissioners think?
What were we doing with Tom?
Tom was
He was only about $16 an hour. wasn't
15
he?
or 17, somewhere right in there.
Yeah,
And he was an employee.
Right.
and he drove from Halsted too.
Mm-hmm.
If she wants to be an employee, I would say the max of $30. If she wants to be a contractor, we'll give her $30 an hour plus mileage.
Did she answer, Ashley? I heard of.
I think maybe we should just kind of hold off and visit with her again and about the
Table this.
specifics, what the questions that we have. I don't think,
But what direction we want her to Ashley to go is just to negotiate for us is what.
mm-hmm.
And my preference would be if she's going to be an employee, the max total that we would pay is 30 with benefits, or not benefits.
Not benefits, but
All the
Employer costs.
FICA
employer
co-
costs,
FICA
the max
costs,
of
huh?
30. If she wants to be a 1099 employee, then we would give her 30 plus mileage.
Well, I think she was at 25, and then she decided with the
Raised it up,
driving
yep, to
that
30.
she
instead of
wanted-
charging mileage.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'd rather even pay a little bit of mileage to have her as a 1099 employee rather than an actual employee.
Well, since this is the only one that we really have a lead on, and we've been working on this for 3 or 4 weeks, months, can we go ahead and have Ashley reach out and give Sonia our concerns and let her negotiate it on behalf of the city?
Right, but what I'm saying is what parameters should we give Ashley to go to negotiate?
Well, she's heard what we've been talking about, so I don't want to scare Sonia off if this is the only one that's going to come in and do the cleaning for us. So let's let Ashley have the latitude to take and come up with a compromise after hearing your concerns and Paul's concerns. I think personally $30 is good. Now it's the question of being an employee or if it's a contract. That's kind of the way I see it. So I'd, like to give Ashley the latitude to be able to take and say, hey, let her negotiate and come back with it. We can table it for tonight and then revisit it when she has a chance to talk to her.
So is that kind of agreement that everybody wants that would to do 30 plus or 30 in mileage, and otherwise it's got to be less than 30 if she wants to be an employee, just so she has something to go with?
I can't imagine that we're going to be paying much FICA, period, on that little bit of a wage. That's going to make a lot of difference. If she's only going to be putting in an hour or two a week, you're talking,
But still, it's still a third of whatever their salary is. So if they're making $30 an hour, it's $10.
Oh, no.
Not for that.
Not for that, no. Not for what I'm thinking about. You must be thinking of something different.
I just know that when we figure for employees on the rec district, we figure for about a third or so thereabouts. So
Really? It's interesting.
So, again, I'd like to take and just make sure that the commissioners approve that we let Ashley take and talk to Sonia. We table it for tonight and come back and revisit it after she's had a chance to take and relay the concerns of the commissioners, and basically we'll take and make a decision the next time.
Just to clarify, yeah.
Okay?
I agree.
Okay. Moving on to the Public Works recommendation, Zach Anderson. Jim interviewed 3 or 4 people, and again, Paul, I'll let you kind of talk a little bit about Zach.
Okay, both me and Dave was also part of this with Jim when we was talking about the interviews that he had done with different people. We had quite a few applicants, and I think we kind of attribute that somewhat to the fact that we have such a nice benefit plan that people were interested in, and his recommendation came back as Zach Anderson. He has had a background check, and he will take insurance. They want to start him out at $19 an hour, the same way with the 75-cent increase after the 6-month probationary period. He has worked for the city before. We talked a lot about, what are the issues with the Jim's being Jim's son. And we knew, Dave and us, we all knew that, there might be some questions on that. And I kicked it around myself personally, and I felt, I can't really discriminate, discriminate against this kid because he's Jim's son. You know, if he's qualified in every other way, you know, I don't feel it's right to hold it against him because he's Jim's son either, you know. So, you know, I can let Dave give his, but of the ones applicants that we saw, that we talked about and visited with, we just felt that he was the better fit. And I went, you know, from what I felt, and also it was Jim's recommendation. Now I'll let Dave give his 2 cents, and I think we knew that there was going to be some questions asked about that, and I would love to address anybody in the audience that might have a concern about that, or anybody that at home. But I think from what we saw, we felt that it was probably the best fit in this circumstance. And if you have anything to add, Dave.
No, I agree. I think he'll do a good job, and there's nothing in our policy manual that, as far as I know, that says anything against Jim hiring his son.
And it's been my experience in the past that sometimes a father holds his son to a
More
higher
accountable.
standard than anybody else does
Right,
too.
right.
So,
And we have to remember he did work for the city at one point, so he's already has that, you know, he already has that experience. Yes, he might not be at the level he's going to be at now, but he already knows how it works, you know, and that's worth something too. You know, he has worked for a farmer before, so he's operated our equipment before, he's operated heavy equipment before, so they're just, you know, don't get us wrong, Dave, there was a lot of good qualified applicants. It was good. I hope some of these come back again next round, but you know, we were very happy with that. So, you know, it was not I can tell you that it probably was not a very easy decision to make a recommendation of those that were there. So,
Yeah.
The only concern I think he would be good and a good fit, just for cutting it might be best, or my opinion would be that necessarily Jim would be a supervisor of him in the day-to-day actions, but his overall supervisors probably should be Ashley, so that it's not a family member would be your direct supervisor. So if there's any disciplinary or anything like that would go on forth, it would have to come over to somebody else.
would it be more appropriate to have somebody like John Hams within Public Works oversee Zach, and that, you know, Jim's not directly, you know, responsible? Jim does all the appraisals, but, you know, if you have a chain of, you know, basically that some subordinate of Jim's actually oversees the work and gives the initial feedback on job performance. I just don't see Ashley, you know, I see what you're saying, but on the other hand, Ashley wouldn't understand the work and the types of things.
I'm not asking her to tell him what to do or how to do it. I'm saying if there's issues or concerns that he would need to come to Ashley for those things, not to Jim, because she's in a management position where if we had one of the other guys over there, they're not necessarily in a supervisor or management position. And generally in most businesses, if you have that case of a family member in there, their direct supervisor per se would be somebody else within the company or the business that is also a manager. Even though Jim would do most of the work and do all that things, but if there's any issues, I think there has to be a difference in there, as that Ashley would be the direct supervisor of it.
Do we have to take and change our handbook?
we would have to, I'm sure, if we did something like that. And we
I'm
are in
not-
the process of looking at that, but. so-
And I'm not saying that it's gonna be in this case, but in the future, I mean, it could be a lot of different things that.
Well, I personally don't have in this portfolio, I personally don't have an issue with Jim doing anything. The only thing I might have a question about is your performance review. If you would want one of the other employees to sit in on that performance review, and in case there is, something there. But otherwise, the day-to-day operations and everything, I don't see why he should be treated any different than any other employees.
No, I don't either.
That's not what I was saying. What I was saying is that Jim would oversee and do most of the things with him, the day-to-day stuff, but his direct supervisor would be somebody else, such
Thanks, Steve.
as Ashley, so that if something happened, we're not having a
Thank you,
father and son trying to figure it out. That's what I'm saying. If there's an issue, that it shouldn't, I'm not saying that Ashley's being the overseer of him, but are the day-to-day things and telling him and how to do things. I'm saying is if there's an issue, the employee evaluations at the end of the year should be done through Ashley. And I'm not saying that, and then Jim is there and helping with them, yes. But all those things should go through her, not somebody else. Because now, I don't know what business in the world, I mean, I look at a lot of different places that they don't have family members as their direct supervisor.
Well, I think that we have to go back, again, it's an issue with the handbook, that we haven't really contemplated that there's gonna be a situation like this that was gonna come up in the city of Hillsboro. But, you know, again, it kinda lays out the chain of command as not the chain of, performance reviews and, how the handbook handles that, and it's not really spelled out, but we can take and have further discussions about this, how we wanna handle it, but I think tonight, I'd like to get a motion, to take and approve.
So we're going to hire him tonight
Yep.
and to start tomorrow, and you're not even going to think about it.
I
That
said
it,
we've
ju-
been thinking
let me
about it.
finish, Terry. What I'm saying is you're going to hire a person tonight, put him in this position, put Jim in this position. Do I think there's anything that's going to happen? Probably not. But what happens to our liability and things down the road if we have Jim as the direct supervisor of his son? What I'm saying is tonight we hire, the motion that I would make is that we hire him tonight and put Ashley as his direct supervisor, and then we can work on it. Because if we don't do it tonight, it's still going to be Jim over there, and if something happens in the next little bit, what are we going to do?
And what I would like to have happen tonight for a motion is that we approve Zach and we go back and review the handbook procedures so that we make a change to it. We know it's not policy right now probably that's in the handbook, but we have to go back and evaluate that. But it shouldn't hold up the actual hiring of Zach tonight.
This wouldn't hold up the hiring of Zach.
It's on public record now, Levi, that we have this concern that you've raised, and I'm not sure that Ashley's the appropriate answer to this. And I would like to take and go back to the handbook
So
and decide how we do that.
So who are we going to have as a direct supervisor
Well,
until?
Can I
Yeah,
say
go ahead.
something? I see where you're coming from. When evaluation comes, you know, yeah, Jim could sit in it, but yeah, he could be, you know, what is he gonna say about his own son? I get the point where you're driving at. So I don't see Ashley being a part of this. I would think like John, he's a senior member down there, to get somebody like John and not Jim, if that's the case. I just can't see Ashley being his direct supervisor.
And we might be able to take and make that change in the handbook that would reflect that certain
Yeah.
situation.
So here's the case where John is not in a supervisory role and his direct supervisor is Jim. So now you still have how it work would be Jim, John, and then Zach. So Zach would still be technically under his dad.
But Ashley never works with him. Ashley doesn't work out on the road, and
But
he's been
you're
working
not
on
you're not
projects,
seeing the point of it's not that they're overseeing, and it's not that Ashley's overseeing the day-to-day things. It's not that Ashley's overseeing what's going on. It's if something happens, Zach would need to go to Ashley about it and work through it, not Jim. On
So what do you? I mean, what would he need?
What about the
what would he?
personnel file?
Yeah, he's the personnel manager.
Shouldn't that go to him?
so are we going to have the personnel person oversee all the day-to-day things like we talked about? I'm
No,
just
but if there's a problem, and
What's an example of something you're concerned,
That's-
what's an example of something you're
That was
concerned
my
about?
next question. What? Yeah. somebody.
Because I guess I'm just not quite following where the problem you foresee, what the problems you foresee are. Give me an example.
So, and take this into account, this is not something that I say that's gonna happen, but this could be an example. For an example, if, he got in a vehicle accident and had using a city vehicle and had alcohol or something else, do you think that's a position that we'd want to put Jim in?
What does the handbook say about having a city vehicle with alcohol in it and you have an accident? It's cut and dried.
It is, but it gets muddier when it's a family member in that position. That's all I'm saying. I think it would be better. This is my opinion. I'm trying to look out for the best interest
Yeah,
of
we
the
know you are.
community.
We know you are, Levi.
I'm not saying that for 99% of the work that Zach's going to do and the things that'll go on, it'll be through Jim. But on paper, if something happens, his direct supervisor should be not a family member. And I think that would be the same way if we hired somebody in the office here, that it should be another supervisor within our city. And we can't ask another employee that is not in a supervisory role to be a supervisor. How can we ask John or Jim or any of our other employees to be a supervisor or somebody else? That's not what they were hired on to do. Ashley was hired on as a supervisor. She oversees it.
So do you want him to do this for the entire time? If he works for the city for 20 years, he answers to the auditor?
No. Only while it would be a family relationship within it. So at any point Jim retired or Jim took a different role and is not the supervisor, then Zach would go under somebody else. I just think we have to look at this, and granted yes, we need to change our policy about it, but we kind of have to hash it out now before we go in and full force in this right now when we hire somebody. It's really hard to go retroactive on something when we've already put it into play.
Well, and again, I think that you can take an address through the policy handbook. Again, John he doesn't have to be considered a supervisor, but part of his job description could be that he also can relay. It's just like he does the GIS and stuff for the city. Jim doesn't do that. So make it a job responsibility that he would do, basically be the intermediary between Zach and Jim, basically to make sure that there's no negative things that are happening or trends. And again, your example that you used, if Jim didn't take and do the appropriate thing, we as a commission would take and hold Jim responsible for it. It's spelled out. And again, I hate to take and make changes for Ashley to be a supervisor over Zach when we have to take a look at the policy in the handbook and maybe do some corrections in it to take and make sure that we have everything covered. But just making Ashley, a supervisor for Zach simply because Jim is the public works supervisor and Zach works there, I think that that's kind of overkill.
So let me ask you a question then, Terry. By your theory right now, you're saying that Jim Anderson could hire every family member that he has and they could be a supervisor for every one of them. And Ashley could hire every family member she has and be the supervisor for that. Is that what?
No, you're totally wrong,
but
Levi.
Terry,
You're
that
totally
hold
wrong.
it,
You
hold
listen
it
for a minute.
I
We are the ones that making the recommendations here. They did the interviews, and so we are the ones that are still responsible for doing that hiring. It's not family members that are going out and hiring other individuals. And you have two individuals, two commissioners here right now, Levi, that think that Zach's the best appropriate member to take and be hired for public works. And so your hypotheticals, I think, would be mitigated by any circumstances that would come up in the hiring process that the commissioners approve of.
Well, I agree with the point to what he's saying, but I just, it's Ashley, I just don't see Ashley being involved in it, that's.
And I get
That's
it,
my
it's a big stretch, but where else do we put, we're asking another employee that has no supervisory position, not hired into that position, not learned any of the things those things, to be a supervisor. Because we're asking them to do those things. Like I said, this is not a cut and dry, everything goes through Ashley. This is when those HR type things come up, human release, that we need to have something.
Isn't that what
Right.
Paul's portfolio is?
Right, I was just gonna say that, I think a lot of that's addressed in that already, that I'm kind of the overseer of all that, so if there's an issue with Jim and whatever is being done, no matter what employee he has, that can be directed towards me.
So if we go to Grand Forks, do you think that they would have the same answer? Or we go to another community, do you think they'd have the same thing? But I'm saying this has been looked at many different ways.
Then let me change it as far as why, if we have concerns or issues about something, why can't that be addressed in the policy manual for this? Why can't we address it? What's wrong with what you say we can't address that
Because
now?
we talked about changing things in the policy manuals for the past year, and the policy manual has yet to change. So if it's in writing today, that means that it's actually enforced. That's the difference, Paul, is that we've talked about changing things in the policy manual for 2 years, and we have yet to change it. So if it's not in the policy manual, then at least if it's in the minutes that this is how he was hired, I don't have a problem hiring him. But the problem I have is who his supervisor is for the position. And I will tell you that I will vote no unless that happens. And that's the only reason I would vote no, is because of that. Because I don't want to be put into a situation where we could run into issues.
Okay, any other discussion before we entertain a motion?
Do you think, John, that there's an area we should be addressing that can't be addressed through the policy manual?
Yeah, I think that's right. I guess I think that you do that either way. You could have Ashley as a direct supervisor until you revise the policy manual to meet Levi's point, or if you're not ready to do that, then you take care of it after the fact. I don't think anything is set in terms of what we have to do. I think the commission should decide what you want to do, and then let's get it done.
That being said, do I have a motion to take and accept Zach's, Zach Anderson for the Public Works position, and that we would take a look at the policy within the handbook to see if there's a change that's going to be needed to take and make sure that we're not putting anybody in jeopardy as far as the supervisory position goes.
I'll make the motion.
Dave makes a motion. Do I have
I'll
a second?
second it.
Any other discussion?
So when are we going to have it done by? Because right now you have it open. You could we've said that we were going to make changes in the policy.
What would be a month?
A month would be
I think?
acceptable.
Yep. I agree with you. It has to be done. But there's a lot of other things I want to address in the policy manual too. So that's another good reason to do it all at once, so we get it done. And I would say 2 weeks, but with Christmas and everything in there, that kind of shortens things up. But I would say within a month,
So
we
by
could
the
have a
second
draft.
meeting?
We should have a draft, of what we want to do. So, and you can sure add that, if you want. But I agree 100%. If whatever we're gonna do, let's get it done. Let's get it in the book. But I really think we need to get the parties at the table that, whether it be Jim and Ashley and myself, and just make sure that we're, and you're more than welcome to be part of that, to make sure that we're addressing what you want addressed and go from there. So.
And like I said, it's not that
No.
it's not that I'm against it. I'm not against changing the policy, but we talked about changing the policy 2 years ago, and we have yet to change it. So what is the point of changing a policy manual and saying we're gonna do something and we don't do it? Because if we don't, then the policy just stays the same and nothing gets fixed.
As long as the inputs go to Paul as the personnel commissioner portfolio, the commissioner with personnel portfolio, you know, I think that that's good. If we want to take and have a broader meeting where we all get a chance to go through the handbook, then
What I'd like to
that's
do,
fine.
what I'd like to do is and that's one of the things that me and Ashley talked about, one of the first things we talked about having Sarah do is redo that handbook with highlighted areas in yellow that we would address and everybody would see. Hopefully we could get that out ahead of time so everybody could see the changes. But in the light of what's happening tonight, you know, I'd like to talk to Jim and Levi and Ashley and see how we can come to an agreement on how to address that part of the handbook when it comes to relatives working and what we want to do. But I really think we need to get Ashley and Jim's input on it, you know, too. So whether or not we agree or disagree with them, I think it's only fair to let them have some input on it. And I agree. I think we should get it, say in a month and get it done and get it addressed. That's all I have to comment on it. If there's anybody else has any comments.
So now I had the motion, second, we had the discussion. Mike,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Levi,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
and a yes for me. Okay, moving on to the Caledonia Avenue sidewalks, policy discussion of keeping clear of snow. Who brought that in and who's gonna address it?
I just wanted to get it clarified on how we were doing that because I have had a person that had made a comment about why they didn't clean the sidewalks. I know that's kind of in our ordinances, and I wanted to I know this was talked about in the past, and I wanted to kind of clarify it in my head of what the decision was made. I know there was some comment made that, like on Caledonia, that they tend to haul a lot of that snow away. So we were expecting people to keep their sidewalks clean. But I want to kind of clarify that for sure, how, you know, if there's anything that was really decided on that, or just kind of, I know there was mention, if I remember right, of, you know, depends on how much snow we get, you know, at some point we can only do so much with it. But I just kind of want to, so I can respond back to this person on what our actual policy is. And I know, because I know you guys have dealt with that before, and I wanted some input on that so that I could respond back, so.
Are we
I don't know.
talking just downtown Caledonia? Or
No, we're
all
talking to
along?
Dollar General, Casey's, Subway, yeah,
Okay,
so. And I think Levi, you kind of addressed that initially, if I remember right from the meetings, so maybe you might know more information on how that was.
What we have in the handbook or in the ordinance was that we were gonna clean Caledonia from the school to Wells Fargo, the main district, and then First and Main, and I don't remember how far it was, but it was mostly in the business area parts of those areas. And they had, I believe it was 24 hours after the final snowfall. We had talked about, you know, but we never did anything about it, whether or not we were going to have the city crew go out and do it, and then we had a fee structure that we would charge those businesses or residents, or if we were going to hire somebody out. So we never went any farther than that. And most people in the past had cleaned it up, but I suppose it's just a reminder again to do that.
so when you,
Well-
my definition of clean is probably a little bit different than maybe the norm, but, and I know I just shoveled mine this morning again, but we've had the tractor clean it up over there at the brewery a couple of times too, but, you know, people can still walk in front of the brewery even before I shoveled today, so.
Yeah, I like I said, it was brought up, and I said, I don't really know, and I don't know, it's a tough one for me because, you know, it's hard to keep those sidewalks sometimes clean when the snow blower starts blowing snow on them, you know, because you said you're only going up to Wells Fargo. Well, you know, that's, you know, I don't really expect anybody to keep their sidewalk clean if the snow blower, we get a lot of snow and it starts overflowing onto the sidewalks. You know, I think that, you know, I guess you're gonna have to take a risk maybe and walk on the side of the street. I don't know what the answer is there because
See, and
it's,
a good example was, I looked at it today, the south sidewalk of the high school hasn't been shoveled, and you still can walk through there. You know, so is that clean or is it not?
It's not clean, but they've never cleaned it based on that they didn't have any place to put the snow.
Right. And that was the thing, I think that if the city is moving the snow up to Wells Fargo, I think it's only acceptable that businesses and, you know, and I think most of them do. Really, you only have 2 or 3 houses that go up to Wells Fargo probably, but, you know, and maybe you just consider the noise, you know, I look at it that if the city hauls the snow away in front of my business or in front of my house, I should be able to keep my sidewalk clean.
And that's pretty much where they, correct, Mike, when you're hauling out snow, it's pretty much from the school to Wells Fargo, that area that gets hauled out. Do you remember?
I think it depends on how much. A lot of times they'll start out at Casey's and blow all the way, putting it in trucks,
Right.
just past the school, so.
Now, I do appreciate the question because I've struggled with this. So, and Paul, I've watched you shovel yours, but we have to take and put our snow into the street. There's, on the front side, you know, there's just no place to do it. I do have the boulevard on the west side, but, and that's hard if you don't get out there before the city, you know, gets it pushed. And
Most of them don't.
but then if I come down, well, like I say, if it's a heavy snow, I'm gonna come down with the tractor and I'm gonna blow it into the street because that's the only option I have, so.
And I think they understand that, but they usually come back,
And do it again, yeah.
yeah.
Right, right.
The next morning, I've seen them go, or, you know, a couple days later.
And
they'll do-
sometimes they're coming through with the plows and stuff. It's, you know, I guess from my standpoint, I kind of corner, so I've got a lot of snow, and I try to do my best to get out there before they haul it away. You know, it doesn't always happen, but, you know, you want to try and get out there and get it done as soon as you can. And sometimes I beat them out, sometimes they beat me out. So it just, you know, but it's tough when you got that. And
But I
and-
think what was happening when we put the ordinance into effect was that we had we had properties that weren't doing anything, whether they were, because some of them didn't have a business or didn't live there, or there was nothing going on. So it was a way to help, you know, because you could have one business clean, one business not clean, one business clean, one business not clean, and now what do you do? So that was the point of saying that, so that we could get those areas cleaned up.
I think
Most of them did fix that.
Now that you mentioned that, I think I do remember that that was part of the problem, is businesses that were closed that nobody was even coming to clean them.
And it wasn't that where they put the snow, it was
Yeah,
because
they
they
just
weren't
weren't getting it
cleaning
done.
the street, weren't cleaning the sidewalks. Which I think that is kind of remedied for the most part, so.
I think, yes.
Any other discussion on the,
Just thanks for the clarification on that. I'll let that person know, and it's not like it's a major thing, but I couldn't give him an answer, so.
okay, now Levi, we got the HBC ticket item.
Yep. So ticket number 2021-001 is at 318 Second Avenue Southeast. The property owner has been given the letter, and they were given to the Wednesday after our last meeting to either come before the Beautification Commission last Monday or come before the City Commission. So if there's anybody here for that property, which I don't see, at that time, our ordinance does say that our next action, if the commission so wishes, is that we can move forward to hire a company to come in and clean that property up. Is that correct, JR? They've been given the first date, or they've been given a letter, was certified through the sheriff's department that it was delivered, and they were given the date, it was December. It was a Wednesday. So then the last thing would be to the Hillsboro Beautification Commission move to pass it on to the City Commission to, and their recommendation was to get the yard cleaned up. And if you're curious of what the property looks like, it is the one by the school that it is from the street to the garage to the alley and into the neighbor's property.
This is ticket number 1001 or 2021 1001?
Yep,
That's not southeast and that's northeast.
it's northeast. She must
Okay.
have, yeah.
Okay.
I was trying to find it.
I was
on the
trying to
map
figure
here.
that out too.
Oh,
Trying to figure
no,
out-
sorry,
Kitty
sorry.
corner.
I have
from
the wrong
kitty
one.
corner from the school.
Sorry, I have the wrong property.
To the.
Thank you.
So this one is over by the Armory. The
So-
318 Second Street Southeast is over by the Armory.
Across from Glen Hollins.
Yes.
Okay.
That one would be that property has a boat that's been sitting there. Whether or not, that is not necessarily an issue, but there's a car that's sitting in the yard, and then there's a car that we thought was moved that had a tow hitch on it and is back. It got moved, and then now it's back sitting there again.
Were those the people that were gonna be evicted?
Nope, that's the one to the, this is to the north of that property.
Oh, okay.
This
is the one-
property is owned by the Lee family.
Okay.
Okay, so what we have to do as a commission now, the letter's been given, there's been no response, and so now you're asking for permission to take and have the sheriff, okay, somebody like John and,
No, not necessarily the sheriff, okay. I would oversee, or if that's what you want to oversee it, but I would coordinate so that Roe and Joe or whoever we get, plus the sheriff department show up on the same day.
Yep.
And things get picked up. You know, obviously they're not gonna take out vehicles, so at that point, we'd have to do a little different. So if it's a vehicle, we have to hook onto it, and then we take it over to the city shop and it's impounded for so long.
and the county's been notified that we would put this on their taxes if they don't pay for it.
Well, that would come after the fact.
But
'Cause
wouldn't we,
we would put it on in, is it September or August, I think?
I think it's September.
So the city covers it then until the next, okay? Commissioners?
Well, I'm more concerned, and maybe JR, you can clarify how, how this is gonna work, cause I want it to be so that when John and this other group do it, they wanna have the legal paper basically saying, we can do this. And is that the process that you're looking at going down to where,
Right, where, whether we have a letter from Ashley and Terry signing that says that the city commission has officially, and that letter would be sent to them, and I would envision it as that we would say, we would vote on it tonight, do what we're going to do, and then Ashley would send one final letter that says this will be cleaned up after X date.
it
And
is,
then that would be the official letter that this company or anybody else would have when we say, all right, we're going in to clean it up.
and that's adequate if it's challenged?
I would like to look at the ordinances again. I haven't seen the letter prior or
Yeah.
this one yet, but I would pass the motion saying that you comply with the ordinances, and I'll get in touch with Ashley to make sure that yes, that it's good.
Let's
So
just-
what I'm hearing, JR, is that you're gonna check into it, and we might have to defer to the January 3rd commission meeting to vote on it?
Move ahead, but just give us the authority to move ahead with the ordinances.
Okay, give you the authority, okay.
Yeah, basically is what I'm saying. I will look into it then.
No.
Right. That's
Any-
kind of the next step, is that we give the authority to do
Dave
it.
had a question?
I just wanna, let's get it right.
Yep. Yep.
Because I don't wanna come back and fight with this
I don't-
for,
I don't want us to end up, in court and paying you a bunch of money, so. You got enough things to do, you don't have to worry about that.
But on this
So-
property, it would be the two vehicles that would get moved, and then there is some junk around the buildings that would get moved.
And that's pretty well clarified in the letters. There's no
Yep,
doubt
there
that
was
if I
a-
were to pick it up. Okay,
In the letter, it actually said this needed to be
Okay,
done, and
okay.
then there was pictures that were sent
Okay.
that said this needed to be cleaned
Okay,
up, this
okay,
needed to be cleaned
okay.
up.
Yeah, as long as JR is comfortable with whatever ends up there before we move in, I'm okay with it.
Okay, could I get a motion then to take and authorize JR to take and contact, do the research on the ordinance, contact Ashley for the final letter to be sent in coordination for further actions to take place for the removal of the vehicles and the junk pertaining to 2021-001 HBC ticket.
Also move.
Levi moves, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mike seconds. Any other discussion?
And it's 318 Second Street Southeast. You're sure on that one? You were
Yes,
just
that's-
okay, okay.
Yep. I was reading the wrong ticket with the wrong numbers, address.
Okay.
I was flip-flopping them.
Okay.
And Mike?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
And a yes for me. Moving on to HBC ticket 0221, no, that should be 2021004.
Yeah. If you're curious how the ticket numbers, it's just the year and then in order of what we got them in. So that's how it worked. So this one is at 105 4th Avenue. That doesn't seem right either. Yeah, probably. 105 4th Avenue Northeast. Yeah, that's right. Which would be kitty corner from the high school to the
Northwest.
northwest. Yep. And that one is the one that is from the garage to the street and into the other properties on the other side. This one we've been dealing with for a while. And we also have on this property that we were trying to get in contact with her for a building inspection. So is there anybody tonight here for that property? And I don't see anybody.
Just a quick question, Levi. So if we haven't had a building inspection, do we still go through the same procedure we just did for the previous one for the final letter?
So the building inspection was for the house. This is
For the garbage and all the
the stuff all around the outside of it. And this would be the removal of everything around it.
Okay.
I had assumed that the commission would probably even want the totes of wood moved out. And I would move to approve moving that ticket number through to the next process for.
Okay, so Levi makes the motion to do the same procedure,
I'll second.
authorizing JR and Ashley to do the letter. Dave seconds. Any other discussion? Paul?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
And a yes for me. Moving on to ticket 2021-005, the inspection results for 13 South Main Street. Levi, you want to take and cover that one?
Sure. So Mike Blevins did the building inspection on the old chicken scratch bakery at 13 South Main Street. The notice was sent out, I believe, last week. John had a chance to look at it. I looked at it and said the letter was good. She has until March 8th of 2022, which would probably, it's already to vacate, repair, or demolish the building. And at that point, if nothing happens, then we as a city are able to move forward with formal action to do a repair, vacate, or demolish the building. But you can see some of the pictures. Mike was unable to go down into the basement, he said. He didn't feel that it was even safe enough to make it down in there. But, and all of these items are on the Teams and ticket. Ashley uploaded them onto there. That's kind of what her and I talked about, is that everything will go on there so that everybody can look at it at the same time.
So we've sent the letter out basically for the March 8th, 2022 to vacate, repair, or demolish. And so you want us to take and give as a commission the approval for that, or this is, I guess, what motion do you want us to make?
I don't know if we need a motion on that, do we?
I don't know that we need a motion yet. This came from our building inspector saying that that's the deadline, and then it would come to us for our further action on it.
Okay, so that takes care of that. The notification's been made. We'll stand by to hear from that. Any other discussion or any other questions about the inspection report?
I have nothing about the inspection report, but the letter, the top letter here.
Mm-hmm.
What, now did that, because the inspection was done the 9th, and this letter was the 9th. So what kind of process was this? Is this letter been sent out to Joyce, this top
Yes.
one?
Ashley had said she sent it out last week. I don't remember the exact date, but I remember when she had sent us saying that she had gotten it sent.
And you came up with the date
That was
because of the what?
whatever was in the ordinance.
In the ordinance,
This
okay.
was all what Mike had done
Okay.
Must have did it per our ordinances.
Okay.
Anything else,
Hopefully
Paul?
hopefully we hear back from her so that, we kinda, I'd hate for her to not respond to this because it puts herself it makes it hard for us to work with her on anything if she isn't willing to come back and
Right.
respond to us. So I hope she replies and gives us,
I hope so. And if you look at the second page on the packet, it actually says what the issues were and kind of the comments as to what needed to be fixed.
And is there a way for us to convey maybe through the banner that if they do have to demolish or repair, it's gonna be a very expensive process? Again, having done one old building, it's really expensive. So I hope Joyce kinda understands that it's not gonna be something that's gonna be easy or cheap to take and come up with a final resolution.
When I think I had heard, I don't remember if it was from her or somebody else, that she may be looking at selling it, but part of that is now with this in place, even if that property was sold, the same thing would have to happen for that property.
that's why I feel it's so important that she gets in contact with us.
Yep.
Because, if that's her intentions, maybe, what is the person's buying it, what are their intentions, because if we have somebody that's intending to do something with this property or tear it down or whatever it might be, it would be nice for us to know that. I think it would help all parties involved.
But to expand upon that too, Paul, I think that she shouldn't, whoever a potential buyer that could come forward has to know that this is the situation. She can't just sell it and not relay the information that it's basically been condemned.
Right. And
Yes.
just for clarification, this is basically the same thing that'll be sent out for that other property. John, I think, is still looking at it just to make sure it's completely good. And then that letter will be sent out also. And it's the same March timeframe that it needed to be done.
So basically what we're just waiting for a response by the March, is where we're sitting on this one?
Yep.
Then we decide what we're gonna do after that?
Well, if
Well,
she
it's pretty
doesn't
much laid out there,
respond,
but-
then, the
Right.
8th,
Yeah.
we'll have to take action.
Right.
Okay. Hearing no other discussion, building permit process update. Mike, anything on that?
No, we're gonna be meeting here with contractors in January, hopefully.
Okay. Food truck permit update. And I think, mobile food truck, JR, you brought this in. Anything that you want to address on this one?
I just want to give it to you for your viewing pleasure for Christmas during the holidays. I stole from another city, so it's just a template to go off of course, freely changeable.
Okay.
It gives us something to do is to the ordinance so that we can actually have a permit process.
And we are able to do it through,
From what I've seen is they're trying to regulate food markets, supermarkets, things of that nature. This is food sold for immediate consumption.
okay.
Yes, we do have that power under our kind of plenary powers of the city to regulate health concerns with food.
So like you said, let's look it over so we can address it next meeting. So, make sure, just make sure, Ashley, that,
It looks good,
make sure Ashley gets it on as old business.
Okay. Moving on to the gaming document update.
That one I did not get to.
Okay.
I got close today, but I didn't get there, so I'm sorry, but, it's your end. That's all I'm gonna say.
And new business, we approved, basically, the commissioners voted for a budget, to the budget for a 3% raise for all eligible employees for 2022. Any discussion from the commissioners, before I ask for a motion to give a 3% raise for all eligible employees?
Isn't that usually approved with the budget, or?
Yep, that's what we did. We approved it for the budget.
We
to take
budgeted
to-
for it.
yep,
It probably
yep.
wasn't approved, but it was
Oh, okay.
budgeted, so.
But now we have to take in, now that the budget, it's budgeted for 3%, is have a motion to take and go ahead and pay that 3% for 2022.
Well, I made the motion before for 3%, so.
Okay, Dave makes a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Levi seconds. Any other discussion? Okay, let me see, I gotta pick somebody new. Levi,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
and a yes for me. So 3% raise for all eligible employees will start the first of the year in January. Anything from the citizens out there?
I do have one thing quickly.
Okay,
I just want approval from the rest of you to work on this. I had talked to Steve about it also. I've been working on it for a while, but on the outside patio that you are planning to have at the brewery, Terry, we just need to make sure that and Steve was on that page too, is that we just need to figure out how the ordinance is going to fit into there. Because as he read it, it's a little different. So I just want the okay for us. It'd be me and Steve and then John to sit down and try to figure out if we need to draft some, or JR to work on if we need to change the ordinance. But the first step would be from you, Terry, is if you could write down what your intentions are on how you envision that outside patio area so that we can see how we can fit it in.
you bet. And then I need to get Steve to come over and talk along with Jamie, and I just haven't been able to reach out, and Dave, to talk about occupancy and those things, but I still don't have, I got the kitchen equipment sitting in storage right now in the back room, but I need to get further down the process so that they can visualize the amount of people and exits and stuff that I have. Another addition to the patio is having a windowed door like I have in the front, to be able to see out there besides the camera that's there too, so.
Well, and I think part of it, what Steve and I had the conversation about was, it all depends on what your plan is. If your plan is to have it as an outside drinking area, then we'd look at that differently than if it was an outside eating with drinking. Because what he would see it as is if it's outside for drinking, then it would have to fit into what we have currently for the patio or the beer gardens, which it wouldn't fit. So we have to look at it, and whether it's a certain time that it's going to close, because his concern was, how is an officer driving down the street going to know what he should or shouldn't enforce there?
Yep, which will go with the family-friendly times that I'm working on. It's basically gonna be food, it won't be drinks only, it'll be, again, family-friendly environment out there.
So if you just
So-
want to write down so that I can take it to, as long as you guys are okay with me moving forward with it, so three of us can sit down and say, this is what you're looking for, how can we make it fit in the ordinance, and do we need to change our ordinance to make it?
Well, I guess for clarification, I was gonna have Steve come over to cover all the, all the alcohol and food and all the criteria for what the expectations from the sheriff's department, which is our law enforcement for the whole brew pub, and not just one specific portion of it. So I'd
But he
rather
was-
you sat in with us as we walk through and talk about it. But again, we don't have an alcohol portfolio, so to speak, so, I have no problems with any of the commissioners coming at that time, but I'd rather have that discussion in person with Steve walking through with me, being able to see and talk about what the options are.
But that,
I just want to interject here. This obviously isn't on the agenda. I know it's something, I think it's more just for your information and you want to go, but I think we should you guys gather what information you feel you want to present. I think Ashley should put it down as an agenda item in case anybody in the public has anything that they might want to complain, but I think, yeah, you go ahead with it and then just bring it next time or when you're ready with it as a formal agenda item.
right, and that's what I'm asking
Yep,
for,
yep.
and that's where, Terry, while you're doing that, if you could just write down what you envision so that it's on paper and we have it, so that we know where we're at with it. And we can move forward on this specific session, because that specific section of the brewery doesn't necessarily fit in our ordinance the way that Steve would like. So he wants more clarification on it. We may not have to change ordinance. We don't know. That's where if you write that portion, it's just for the outside area that you want to use. The rest of it is covered in our current ordinances, what you can and can't do. Even if you came over, there's nothing in the ordinances that says about the brew pub, and that was the one stipulation we said when we okayed your liquor license. It was without that because we hadn't got that figured out yet. And so he got back to me about it and said, we need to sit down and work on it. And I said, okay. And he said he wanted specifics as to what you were working on or what your plan was.
Yep, and just for the public's, you know, since we're talking about this, is I've reached out to Steve twice about coming over, you know, and talking about what he wants to have as far as the, you know, enforcement aspects of it, and so that it clarifies it for me. So, you know, I'd be happy to write that down, but, you know, I don't want people out there to think that I haven't reached out for, you know, the law enforcement aspects of what the brew pub should be and shouldn't be doing, so.
Well, and like I said, I don't know anything about that. This was just, I'm just saying, just for the outside portion, what your intentions were. That's all I would appreciate so that we could move forward.
I'll send it to the whole commission. So, anything else from the public out there?
Gary, do you have anything, Gary?
I have nothing right now.
I thank you for hanging in there to the end. You're a real glutton for punishment, or
The Vikings game on record.
okay.
Me too.
So
Leave the radio off till I get home.
okay. Well, you know what that outcome is already.
You got your,
So
you got your Frisco tickets already?
Yep.
You do?
Leaving Thursday night.
Woohoo! It'll be fun.
Tickets in August.
Oh, you did get them already?
Oh, yeah.
I like the way he thinks. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
$1,500 a piece, and I made $99.
Wow, that's a big deal. Dave makes a motion. Do I have a second?
second.
Paul seconds. We're adjourned. Thank you.
With 9 years of experience, I know what tickets sell for.